Okay, so I want to talk about how to do dental colleges. We're talking about being all things to all people so that by all means we can win some. And we were looking at how Paul said, your own poets have said, in him we live and move and have our being. And so to get into a dental college, one, they're all from science backgrounds, so you can talk about intelligent design. Two, they're in the health line, but specifically they talk about oral health. Recently, I visited 5 times one dental college, and finally they were trying to get me in on Women's Day, Ladies' Day, or World Oral Health Day. Women's Day, they were going to give me 20 minutes. I wouldn't agree. I said no. So then they said, World Oral Health Day, is your program anything about oral health? And I said, that's exactly what our program is about. He said, okay, you've got an hour and a half. And I spoke to these professional students. They were all doctors. They were all already graduates and doctors. It was their postgraduate department. And it was such a wonderful opportunity. So how do we speak about oral health? Okay, basically we are speaking against oral sex. And this is what's advertised in so much of the pornography today. Apart from the normal form of sexuality, there's anal sex and then there's oral sex, the use of the mouth in sexual activity. And there's been so many articles recently which talk about oral sex being extremely dangerous. It is well documented. Now, dentists are not only responsible for teeth, but they have to look in the mouth to see if there's any diseases. And some of the worst diseases come through oral sex. Some of the most dangerous diseases. So they cannot miss out the biggest issue and the reason behind it, which is oral sex. They have to look at this. Now, some of the diseases that can be spread through oral sex are gonorrhea, genital herpes, syphilis, chlamydia, HIV, hepatitis A, B and C, genital warts, pubic lice. Isn't that a nice bunch of things to say? But so it's not just AIDS. There are many. HIV/AIDS is one of them, but the gonorrhea and syphilis, all these other sexually transmitted diseases can be spread through oral sex. And so we should by heart 3 or 4 of those. I'll just say again: gonorrhea, herpes, genital warts, HIV, syphilis. There's 5. So if you can name them when you talk and do your Ignite to the dental college principal, he will know about all these things. However, it's not just the issue of the sexually transmitted diseases. Recently, the Daily Mail, one of the top newspapers in the United Kingdom, they published an article showing that oral sex raises the risk of getting cancer by 22 times. This is a huge thing. I'll say this again. Those people who are engaged in oral sex, which is advertised, whether heterosexual or homosexual, the only option for homosexual girls or lesbians, but AC please. Those people engaged in oral sex have 22 times the chances of getting cancer. Okay, okay, let me explain this. You think, well, how could you get cancer from thing? Well, first of all, again, if you think of the mouth and you think of intercourse, okay, intercourse is related to like the bathroom, but the mouth is related to the kitchen. Would you allow the germs that are in the bathroom or in the toilet to come into the kitchen where we eat food? This is what we're doing. Oral sex is like taking some of the juice from the latrine or the lavatory and you making the rice with it. Okay, that is what oral sex is. Okay, so actually it's far worse than that. It's far worse than that, but we won't go into details. Okay, so now unfortunately, although this is disgusting to us, when people watch oral sex in pornography, it desensitizes them to the unhygienic activity that this is, the extremely unhygienic activity that this is. And yeah. So how but okay, apart from this transfer, you know, and remember condoms break, and people don't usually use condoms when they're doing oral sex because their condoms are to stop pregnancy. So if someone has oral sex, they're not going to get pregnant. But it transmits. And even if they use, remember they break, and especially when it's in the mouth with the teeth. Okay, so how can cancer though come? That's the question. Well, it's not direct, it's indirect. There is one of the most common sexually transmitted diseases is human papilloma virus. I'm not sure I pronounced that exactly right. It's human papilloma, correct. Human papilloma virus, and this is spread through oral sex into the head and the mouth and the neck, and this virus affects the skin and moist membranes which line the body, but HPV for short, human papillomavirus, causes changes in the cells it is infected, which leads to cancer. That's the issue. So HPV, like HIV, HPV is a sexually transmitted disease. It's not deadly most of the time, but it does lead to cancer. Okay, now let me go through a few statistics on this so we can see clearly what we're talking about. 500,000 people worldwide get oral cancers every year. Okay, so this is a huge thing. There are an estimated 1.1 million people dying from HIV globally at the moment. Okay, now this is HIV. Now let's go on to HPV. 9 million people die of cancer each year. It's the second biggest killer, second only to heart disease. So everyone knows cancer, apart from heart attacks, is the worst disease. Now, as I said before, a large group of those, or 500,000 new people every year are diagnosed with oral cancers, like head cancers and throat cancers, oral cancers, different ones. So that's 5 lakhs. That's according to the sources, the World Health Organization, and the previous one was also World Health Organization. Now, 20 to 25% of these oral cancers are deadly. They lead to the mortality of the person. The source of that is the Oral Cancer Foundation. Now, they used to believe, like the American Cancer Society, 8-9 years ago, believed that there was only a 25% link between HPV and cancer. But in a huge survey recently done by the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York, which was published online in JAMA Oncology, is that pronounced correctly? In 2016, they said 70% of oral cancer was linked to HPV. 70%. In other words, it's the absolute vast majority of oral cancers come through HPV. So in other words, oral sex transmits en masse HPV massively, and of all these lakhs and lakhs of oral cancers, or in our generation millions of people that have died of oral cancers, 70% is related to HPV. Or in other words, millions of people have died because of oral sex. Hence the Daily Mail report, oral sex is deadly. There are 100 types of HPV, and about 9, according to the NHS and the Centre of Disease Control in UK and USA, and most of them are not deadly, but it's the fact that it's linked to the cancers that's the problem. Now, this HPV is extremely contagious, far more than HIV/AIDS, far more than many other diseases. Just in America alone, 6 million new infections per year, according to the American Cancer Society, of HPV, human papilloma virus. 3/4 of 75% of promiscuous women in USA get HPV. So in other words, if you sleep not just with your husband, but with lovers, or if a guy goes with prostitutes, this is actually ladies. So ladies that have multiple partners before they're married or after they're married having affairs, they have a 75% chance of getting HPV. Now, but 90% of the HPVs is not deadly. And as I said, there's a 70% link, so we're not wiping out 75%. But these are huge numbers that show the connection. HPV is a massive issue, and it's now been proven its connection. So therefore, what people thought before was safe sex is actually very, very dangerous. Oral sex leads to cancer, increases people's chances, as I said before, by 22 times. So when we're doing our program, when we go to the dental colleges, for their profession, they need to understand this. You know, this is quite recent surveys and research and statistics, that if we can go through it like that, with the statistics explaining this, it means we can get in, we can get access, and then we can do everything else. Because it's the oral sex that's causing it, it means that we can talk about all our issues: pornography, immorality, promiscuity. Thank you very much. God bless you.